Hello and welcome back to the 1.2 podcast. How's it going, Jack?
It's going.
It's going.
It's going.
Jack, you look a little tired. You
Wow.
look
You're not supposed to say that to someone.
a little. Well, you're not a lady, so I think
Right.
you're allowed to say that in the brutally honest fashion that we guys like to hold each other to a higher standard. So
Okay.
so so Jack, why are you tired?
I don't know. Why am I tired?
Well, maybe a recent addition to your family.
Yeah. I
So
figure that's where you're going,
that,
but
that probably doesn't help with your sleep schedule.
right. A third child, not a kid, a child.
That's right. That's right. We have to be very intentional. And why
Yes.
is that? Why is that?
I don't have we talked about that on this before?
I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Maybe we
I
did
don't know.
when
I
we were
don't know.
doing wordplay.
Yeah, maybe.
But for
But
those who don't follow every single episode,
yeah, for those who are just tuning in to a random episode. Goats have kids.
yes,
That's why.
yes, yes.
And humans don't have kids. They have children.
Right. So if you have kids, it means you have goats, and those goats
Correct.
have small baby goats.
Yes. So I have three children now.
3 children, no kids.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And here in my house, we have 5 children. We may have kids someday, but you know, we'll see about that addition to the hobby farm. But well, I guess today I wanted to just touch on fatherhood and sort of the new, a new child in the family, and you've got all kinds of books, what to expect when you're expecting, and all kinds of stuff like that. So self help and prepare you. So does first of all, did you read any of that stuff before you had children?
Um, I think we had What to Expect When You're Expecting. I think we had a copy of it. I don't recall reading it very closely or very intently. Um, I did read a I forget what it's called. I'd have to look it up, but it was some sort of like spoofy. You're a dad now.
Oh yeah,
Here's what it's going to be like. And it
right.
was mostly satirical, I think.
Ah, right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, I read that, but not. I didn't read anything to actually learn anything.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. So I guess my question then is, let's break away from the experts. The people who write these books, who have doctorates and PhDs, and all those things. What what did you find to be the most helpful and the most challenging about going from no children to one child, from one child to 2 children, and now 3 children?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's differences along the way as you progress.
Right.
But I would say going from, beginning my fatherhood, the it's funny. I tell my wife this all the time. She gets frustrated when things aren't going well. Everybody's not happy. Everybody's not perfect. Starts calling herself a bad mom sometimes, and I just think that's nonsense.
Yep.
There's no like anybody who tells you it's easy and there's a perfect way to do it is lying to you. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. But that's like it's okay not to know because we're learning
Right.
as we do.
Right.
And I think that's been the most helpful is you don't have to know all the answers. You
Yep.
just can't get frustrated with the process
Yep.
and experience. I mean, it sounds cliche perhaps, but until you actually are doing it, you
Right.
have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
You know,
I
I
think.
equate it to like going to law school and then
Yep.
practicing law. Like
Right.
you can learn all this stuff, but you don't actually know how to be a lawyer until you
Exactly.
actually start doing it.
Right. Right. And another similarity is, how they say that you're practicing law. Like
Yeah.
you never actually like fully, grasp or master the law.
Hmm.
You just keep practicing. I think it's the same with parenthood,
Yeah,
right?
you're learning
You just,
something every day.
right, right. I think between marriage and having children, those are the two um, areas where more people come out of the woodwork with opinions
Hmm.
as to what the do's and don'ts and all these different things. And I think even probably more so with having children, because with marriage, it's typically just like guys who've married that are talking to you, man to man. Hey, let me pull you aside, share a little wisdom. Happy wife, happy life.
Don't go to
Those,
bed angry.
yeah, that's right. and but having children, right? Then like you get it from both sides.
Right.
So everybody has opinions as to.
Well, you get it from both sides. You get it from multiple generations.
Yep, yep,
It's
right,
everywhere.
right. You get it from people who don't even have children.
Yeah.
I tend to, I found that people who weren't married, like, weren't really giving pre-marriage advice, but like even people without children, like, give their 2 cents. Oh yeah, yeah, my cousin, my nephew, oh yeah,
Hmm.
it's like everybody is an expert in child raising all of a sudden when
Right.
they find out that when you're a soon-to-be parent. Um,
And I think, I mean, this isn't to discount, advice and listening to others. I certainly welcome it. I certainly appreciate it. I've I've learned things that are helpful. I it's
right,
just, I think that's the beauty of children, right? Is every single one is unique and every
right,
environment is different.
right,
And so what works for your child might not work for my child. And
right.
you and I can talk about fatherhood and ways we approach certain situations, but that doesn't mean that we have to do it the same way.
Right, right. And I think the problem with the sort of flood of advice that you get is some of it's diametrically opposed,
Yeah.
right? Like some people say you never, ever, ever, ever wake a sleeping child,
Hmm.
right? If the baby is sleeping, you let it sleep. And the other half are saying, no, 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 no. You have to wake it up so that it learns a schedule, it learns a routine, and then you'll get on a schedule and a routine, and you shall never break that routine ever for 18 years. And it's like, well, now I have two choices, and they are diametrically opposed, and I have to choose one. And that to me was the most daunting part of new parenthood.
Yeah.
Is you read all these different things, and you can't do them all, right? And so that was the most challenging thing, because you're constantly thinking, am I picking the right one?
Hmm.
And the consequences of picking the wrong one seem to be much higher.
Yeah.
I don't know if they are.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I don't like. I think it's okay to be wrong and pick
Hmm.
the wrong approach. But I mean, you realize and you figure it out, and that's part of learning.
Right, right.
It's okay to fail. I mean, and we're going to throw out a lot of cliches probably, but it's true. I don't have any other better way of describing it.
Well, I think that studies show that the number one indicator of I don't know if you call it success or whatever in a child, the future indicator of success is simply the presence of the parents in the
Hmm.
child's life. It's not necessarily what nap routine they had, what form of discipline they used, those types of things. It's more, did they have a parents who were engaged, loved them, and were intentional about trying to do right by them. Now, certainly there are ways I think you can mess that up, and I do think that you know I would be remiss if I didn't say that our society leaning towards the, like, I just want to be friends with my children. I don't think that's the right. I just want to be friends with them. Um, and I think that's a problem, because you do things differently for friends than you do. I don't want to equate children to pets, but you have more responsibility for making sure that they make the
Hmm.
correct decisions, because they don't know as much as you. Versus a friend, you're like, yeah, if you want to jump off that bridge, go ahead, sure, it's your choice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll hold your beer, but I'm not going to stop you, right? Um, so I think there are some ways that you can do it wrong, but mostly, I think, if you're intentional and that you're spending time with your children and that they feel secure and loved and supported, I think that's generally the main indicator.
Hmm.
Um, but going back to the manual, there's no manual. There's no. It still blows my mind that we went to a hospital and like left 2 days later with a baby,
Yeah.
and there was almost no like concern by the hospital that we were just going to completely screw it up,
Right.
right? it's, and I think, I mean, that speaks to, first of all, the level of trust that they have in us, maybe misplaced, maybe not, but also I think the kind of the instinct, right, that's ingrained in us
Hmm.
to be parents.
Yeah.
It's remarkable that given the number of people who know nothing about babies, who get babies, um, don't massively screw it up, right? I mean, it's. I think that is an incredible testament, and I believe divine, right? How we've
Yeah.
been made, and um, but it is. There's no manual, and I agree that it's hard.
It's funny. I mean, I'm just thinking back to my first child,
Hmm.
and I felt the same way, but she was 3 weeks early, and I tell this story all the time. And like, I just, it happened so fast and so unexpected,
Hmm.
even though, I mean, 37 weeks pregnant is not
Yeah. Right. Right.
premature or that early. But it was just, I mean, I struggled to describe it, and this isn't for show. We've had this conversation before, and I struggled to come up with the words, and I've thought about it more, and I still can't come up with the words, and I think that points to the divineness of it,
Right.
because it just happened. I wasn't fully ready, and I'm a planner, I'm a prepper. I wasn't, my mind wasn't there yet. It was
Right.
like, oh, this pregnancy lasts a long time. Like,
Yep.
yes, it's
I've,
coming.
I've still got a couple weeks to
Yeah,
go.
you start to prepare certain things. The nursery gets ready, but then there's a baby,
Right.
and you don't have any time to think about it. It just happens, and you're just in this go mode.
Right. Right.
And I think that's what you're getting at too. Is it's just human nature takes over,
Yep.
and I could have read every book in the world,
Right.
and I would have been just as flabbergasted.
Right.
Like, oh, here's a baby, and I remember the nurse. She's like, "Oh, here's how you change a newborn's diaper," and like I've changed diapers before,
Uh-huh.
but not very regularly, and
Right.
certainly nothing that small and delicate.
Right.
And it's just like show you once, and I'm looking like, okay, okay, you take that strap off, and then there's trying to swaddle them, and it's like, okay, you got
Oh
to
yeah.
tuck this in, tuck that out. This one goes under, this one goes over. I'm like, can you show me that again? And she's just like, no, you got it. And then it's just you're doing it,
Right. Right.
and maybe you're doing it wrong, but you're doing it.
Well, and maybe, which they don't tell you, maybe your baby doesn't like being swaddled,
Oh, right, yeah,
because that's some babies.
yeah,
And
and that's as you talk about progressing along.
right.
And
Right.
now I could tell you as soon as that thing comes out,
Right.
like you swallow it once, and it's, okay, doesn't like that.
Yep.
Arms got to be out.
Yep.
Doesn't like their arms down. But yeah, I would never have known that.
Right. Right. Yeah, they don't. The problem is, you could, like you said, you could read every book, but you can't prepare for every contingency
Mm-hmm.
of a person, right? We are too complex to learn about every single thing. Um, so then, second child, right? Now you're a pro, right?
Oh yeah, never do anything. I never get anything wrong.
That's right.
I'm always right.
That's right. That's right. And I think what throws you with a second child is you're expecting it to be like the first,
Yeah.
right? And that's when you really start learning, oh, wait a minute, babies aren't all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you've figured out the formulas with the first one, right? You figured out how they like to fall asleep. You figured out the way they like to be held. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this, oh, all you have to do to calm them down is put them in the car seat and just swing them, rock them gently. That's what works. And now all of a sudden that doesn't work. And
Right.
now you're panicking, right? Because you're comparing. You have something to go off of. And you're like, hey, this worked last time. Why isn't it working this time? There's got to be something wrong,
Yep.
right? And that's a whole new lesson.
Oh yeah. And all the little tricks that you figured out the first time,
Right.
throw them out the window.
Yep.
They mean nothing. Like this, usually crying, but the second one's just kind of like laughing at you
Right.
because, oh, you think this is gonna work on me? I don't like that. That may have worked for my brother or sister, but not for me.
Yep. Yep.
I think just the way you hold the baby and
Right.
you rock the baby, and
Right. Right.
it's wild. And I think an underrated aspect, and something because I was, you're never prepared for that, but you assume, it's not going to be exactly the same, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you go into it knowing that.
Yeah.
I think what threw me off the most was the impact it would have on the other child.
Right. Right. That's a whole
And
new dynamic.
it shouldn't be that surprising because, you're completely changing their life too,
Right.
especially going from being the only sibling to now not being the only sibling. And our children are close enough together that it's not like we had a 6-year-old who was an
Right.
only sibling and then
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
But even our daughter was 2.
Right.
Even that was something I wasn't prepared for, wasn't expecting. She was a perfect angel, always went to bed at the same time, and brought baby brother home and just turned into a terror.
Yep.
Stopped going to bed, would get out of bed.
Yep.
Bedtime used to be about 2 minutes.
Yep.
It became 2 hours.
Yep.
That I don't think you can fully prepare for.
No. I know there's plenty of times when a child who is potty trained will go back, will revert when a new baby's born. There's all sorts of things. So then we get to number 3. Now you're outnumbered, right? That's what they say. Now you're playing zone defense.
Yeah.
And now you're not quite there yet because you don't have the mobility, right?
Right.
But there's still this level of, it used to be, if your wife was holding one of them, you could run and chase the other. Now, if your wife is holding a newborn and your 2 children run in other directions, or maybe there's 2 concurrent problems to solve, now it's on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to work with both of them, and there's a new dynamic. So I honestly thought going from 2 to 3 was harder than 1 to 2. So the first one obviously changes the most, right?
Yeah.
Before that, you can do what you want when you want on your schedule, that type of thing. Now all of a sudden, hey, we've got a different priority. 1 to 2, it was a big change, but not such a big change that I felt like I don't know, overwhelmed by it or anything like that, the way I did the first one. But then 2 to 3, I thought was more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I would say too early to tell for me.
Sure. That's
I'm a month and a half now, but it's I don't know, and it's a weird time of the year because it's cold. We're not really getting out of the house. There's not really anything to do, so I feel like we're all kind of together, and haven't really had many of the "you've got one, you go chase 2" types of things.
Right. Right.
And it's easy now if my wife needs a break. It's easy for me to pack up the two bigger ones in the car and go somewhere.
Sure.
Like that's not. Yeah, I got both of them, but that's not really me having to chase two different directions. We're all doing the same thing. So I'm sure that will be, once it gets warmer out and we're outside and start going places, a different experience. But yeah, I haven't. Again, the biggest surprise to me, and I don't know why it is a surprise, has been the impact on the two older ones.
Yeah, right.
We had settled into this nice little life with the two of them, and again, we're not talking about years apart here. It's
right.
They're all 2 years apart. So,
Yep.
But still, I mean, we had bedtimes figured out. We had breakfast figured out. We had wake up times figured out.
Right.
Now it's babies crying at 5. One child wakes up.
Yep.
The other one's still sleeping, and now you've got to go, try and balance the morning routine, getting ready for work, with two children that are up and one sleeping, and don't wake the other one up. But now we've woken all three up, and someone's got to shower but get breakfast. I mean, it's certainly complicates things, but I love it.
Absolutely. And the other problem in trying to quote unquote figure it all out is, who knows how the children's behaviors may have changed naturally anyway.
Right.
At every age is so different. Like 0 to 5 months, 5 months to a year. Now they're starting to get personalities. 1 year to a year and a half, starting to walk, mobility. 1.5 to 2. Now they can say little phrases, and they're starting to piece words together, and they're frustrated. And 2 can be a tough time without the addition of.
Yeah, and I was thinking of that even as I was just saying this before, and I've thought about it before. Like, maybe our perfect little angel of a girl didn't change that much because we brought a brother home. Maybe it was because she turned 2 years old, and that's what happened to 2. That's what happens to 2-year-olds.
They call it the terrible twos. That wasn't my experience. I actually thought 3 was more challenging. At 2, for whatever reason, all of our children were still fairly compliant. But then 3 was when they were able to sort of talk back and sort of voice their own opinions and start questioning sort of the authority and things like that. I always thought 3 was harder, but I know it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then you jump from 3 to 5.
I'm out. That's you. What happened to 4?
Yeah, well, we got a little impatient, so we just went for the double up. It's two for one, right? You would think that would save you money, but it really doesn't. Like the hospital just charges you double for everything.
Silly.
Yeah.
This is my little aside on how stupid that is. Just hospitals, maybe not hospitals in general, but the whole idea, like it pains me every single time. You think about your children's names as, what are we going to name them? What's that going to look like on paper? Maybe you think about that. I'm weird like that. I think about that. And the first piece of mail you get with their name on it, the first time you ever see first name, last name, is the bill from the hospital. But sorry, go on.
Frame that and put it on their wall.
Right.
And then start adding interest. And when they turn 18, you can just say, all right, buddy, time to pay up.
Daddy's keeping a ledger.
No, I mean, honestly, I was frustrated. Like you would go in for an ultrasound. I mean, I wouldn't, my wife would. And they would do the ultrasound, which they block off like 45 minutes for it, whether you have 1 or 2. And they would only take the 45 minutes, probably actually less time than that, to be honest. But then you would get a bill for 2 ultrasounds for 45-minute session, ultrasound, because that's their billing code or whatever.
Yep.
1 full ultrasound per child. And there's got to be something that someone should, I don't know, tweet to Elon Musk or someone, or Trump to like someone do something about this, right? I mean,
Yeah. Donald Trump will get right on
I'm,
that.
I'm sure. I'm sure it's up at the top of their priorities. Well, I think we could get bipartisan support on that one, right? I mean, everybody likes parents and cracking down on those big corporate hospitals, right? So, I mean, I joke a little bit, but it was
Yeah.
quite frustrating. Um, but going from 3 to 5, obviously we're talking about having twins here. If no one's picked up on that so far, um, the thing about twins that's different is that you talked about comparing the first child and the second child and all that. With twins, you're comparing them at the same time, right, as they grow, and
That's
that's been
tough.
the most difficult part. Now I'm glad that we've had them as our you know most recent children, so that we had several different ones
Hmm.
first, because honestly, like, one of them is really tracking my oldest son, and the other one is tracking my oldest daughter. And so we can at least look back at like the baby pictures of my son and daughter and say, oh, they're actually relatively on track. But if we didn't have that, I would be frankly worried, because one of the twins is smaller. He doesn't have any teeth yet, and the other one has 5 teeth. I'm like, oh, is there something wrong? Right? Even though it's completely normal for a baby his age to not have any teeth. And so you
Brother
find
took
yourself.
all the teeth.
That's right. And so that's been the hardest part by far. And I know it's something that will continue as they grow, and
Yeah.
that we have to be very intentional about, not, I mean, not showing any sort of, oh, good job to this one, but you're not saying good job to that one because it took them an extra month to walk. That
Right.
doesn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things. One of them is just much more outgoing in general. Um, so making sure that you spend as much time with both of them, when one of them is much more receptive and the other one just kind of like wants to hang out on his own. He's good.
Hmm.
He doesn't
Hmm.
really need. He would actually much rather just go explore the house. He's the explorer. He crawls away. Say, I don't really need you around. I'm good. I'm just going to explore these rooms. Where the other one's like following you around, like, hey, pick me up, pick me up. I really want you to pick me up. I'm going to start crying if you don't pick me up. You know. So
Yeah,
that's been interesting.
I said I was out because I can't opine on that.
I mean, everybody should try having twins at least once.
I would have been there with you before we had 3 children. So
Mm,
like
yeah,
I would have been okay if this last one was twins
right.
and we had our
Right.
4.
Then you get to your number, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Now 3 to 5.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game, because you never. I mean, now you might go for 4, and you might end up with
Right.
twins or
Right.
triplets. You never know.
No history in our family, so
Yeah, you're probably safe then. Yep. Yep. Well, any other words of advice for those, future
no, we just got
parents?
done talking about don't listen to advice. Just
No, but our
do it.
our advice is good advice, right?
Nike.
We're
Nike.
right. Just do it. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
No, I think that.
He's going to give his advice. Here it goes.
Well, my advice is to take some advice.
Okay.
Right. Listen to it. Listen to it all. Don't shut it out. Right. Keep it in the back of your mind, because there were a lot of things that, something would just be going wrong or not going well, and then you would think, oh yeah, somebody told me that if this was happening, they did that one thing and it worked. And you try it, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. And if it works, you're going to be so thankful that you
Right.
listened.
Right.
Right. And if it
Yes.
doesn't, you move on. So
I kid.
a child.
Mm,
Wordplay.
wow. Wow. You got the wordplay guy with wordplay.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So I won't ask for child raising advice, but do you think that it's a positive thing? Has it been a positive thing on your life overall?
To have children?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best part about my life.
There you go. You heard it here first. Despite lots of people saying, "Oh, yeah, you're never gonna have fun anymore. Everything's life's over when you have kids." Right? Don't listen to those people. That's my one advice. Don't listen to those people.
Yeah.
Don't listen to those people. That's the amount of joy that it brings cannot be compared.
I agree.
To anything else. So, if you're out there, you're on the fence.
Have kids.
I was going to say Nike, but there you go.
Kids or children? What do you?
Maybe you could have kids first, see how it goes.
That's what I'm saying. Like I don't. If you know,
if you can take care of the kids, then maybe you can take care of the children.
Maybe Nike, yo.
On that note.